the player with the biggest chance to change their narrative this postseason?
James Harden. The answer is James Harden, because I believe that when my eyes were on James Harden this year, regular season, I thought, that looks like the best player in basketball to me, but we all know the story in the playoffs. We all know his postseason woes, especially when it gets tight, late in games, game sevens or games on the road that they can steal. He's choked. Too often he's choked. Hasn't played up to his normally extremely high standard. But this time, Stephen A., you don't have to worry about scoring 50 points to win. He's got weapons like KD and Kyrie. I mentioned Joe Harris going to be wide open the whole time. I believe that James Harden is going to be Finals MVP this year. That's my prediction. And I think that will change the narrative about him. In fact, if he does do that, the question will be, after these finals are over, who's the best player in basketball? And if Harden does what I think he can do on this squad, it ain't going to be, well, LeBron has the undisputed throne. That's how highly I think of Harden's chances in these playoffs. He is obviously the guy that makes that team go, running D'Antoni's system. D'Antoni got Steve Nash as his boss right now, and James Harden still is his point guard. But with the weapons they have, we've seen Harden's success. When he doesn't play, they don't win. When he plays, they never lose. Answer is James Harden.
Let me tell you why you're wrong about this. And when you bring up Harden, first of all, I don't believe he chokes the way that you say. That's number one. But number two, I'm going to tell you why I think you're wrong. Because of the role he's playing this year with Brooklyn. The fact that he is basically the floor general and he patrols the offense and he's distributing the basketball just as much as he's shooting the basketball. The onus is no longer on him the way that it was in Houston, where he was averaging 30 a game for 3 consecutive seasons. That's not where he's at now. So the fact that he gets to step back and be a floor general, Max, you're going to look at days where he isn't a prolific scorer, and you're not going to have a problem with it because he might have 15 assists. And he ran the floor and kept the team patrolled, and the offense as well, kept the team in control, and the offense patrolled as well. I'm going back to Paul George as my pick in terms of an individual that has an opportunity to change the narrative, because particularly the way he played in Game 7, and how sporadic he was, and how open he was about the challenge of coming into the bubble where his head wasn't right, and he was a bit compromised, and we got into all of that stuff of mental awareness and things of that nature. The reality is that with some of those things that he's had to overcome, along with the fact that even though he's still big time, he's never been the same since that nasty injury in Summer Olympic play. The bottom line is, when you look at him now, the season that he's averaging, 23, 6, and 5, 46.7% shooting, 41% from three-point range. And whether he doesn't need help, but he's got it now with Rondo as a legit, quintessential point guard. Of course, Patrick Beverly can defend and all of that stuff. But him doing what he's capable of doing, if Kawhi is Kawhi and Paul George takes over and is doing his thing, the Clippers could win the chip. We all know that. And that's why I say Paul George has a chance to change the narrative.
If the question for me was other than Harden, I would agree. Paul George is my second pick. But let me tell you why I believe it's Harden. Because what you said about he doesn't have to score 30, 35 points a game, let's not forget, Harden's averaged over 30 points with a ton of assists and rebounds, over the course of a season, right? But he doesn't have to do that, and people recognize that. But I'll tell you what he could do easily, average a triple-double with more than 20 points for the entire playoffs, including the finals. And let me tell you what the difference is to me. Paul George can overcome, he's not a playoff performer. Yes, that's a huge narrative for him to change, and they could win if he can do that. But James Harden, there's more at stake. James Harden can not only change the narrative about him choking in the playoffs, or however you want to say it, Stephen A., doing less than he normally does in the playoffs, his team not winning a championship in the playoffs. He can not only turn that around, but right now most people consider him the second best player on his own team. What I'm saying is by the end of these finals, I think James Harden has a chance to take at least a piece of the crown from LeBron, to where at the end, by the end of when the dust settles, we're like, I don't know if LeBron doesn't have it anymore, but there's a dispute to the throne. That's how I think Harden can change the narrative. That's an
If Harden
enormous
drops
narrative
25, if Harden drops 25 and like 8 or 9 assists or whatever, but Kyrie drops 40 and KD drops 40, bottom line is they win and we're talking about them as a team, he's not going to be hurt and the narrative ain't going to elevate exponentially. Paul George is an entirely different ball game because he's the guy that needs to help Kawhi Leonard in everybody's eyes.
But even if you're right. But even if he does help, I wouldn't think he'd have a better series than Kawhi Leonard. It'll still like if Paul George really helps, then Kawhi's Finals MVP
Guys,
and he
real
gets all
quick.
that.
Heard mine.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.